I think for me, the big thing about leadership is listening more than you talk.
Yeah.
Right. Which is kind of funny to say as we're sitting here,
Yeah.
just talking.
Yeah.
But I think that's a big piece for me is to listen more than I talk, because I need to listen to the members for what they're going through, what their needs are, so that we can make sure that we address that at the association level.
Today on Leading Lubbock, I sit down with Cade Fowler, Executive Officer of Lubbock Association of REALTORS. Cade has been in leadership for over 2 decades and has helped shape the growth of our industry here in West Texas. In this conversation, we talk about what leadership looks like when it's rooted in listening, guiding with wisdom, and building trust. Cade also shares how parenting, volunteer leadership, and even key making shaped his leadership journey. So buckle up. This one's a good one. Well, welcome back to Leading Lubbock. Today I get to sit down with Cade Fowler. Cade, it's fun. I've gotten to know you over the last couple of years as I serve on some of the committees and the board with the Lubbock Association of REALTORS. So one, just thank you for being on today.
Well, thanks for having me, Ruben. Yeah, I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the last couple of years. Good to see you get involved and contribute your knowledge and your talents to the association.
Well, I've learned a lot.
Good.
You guys have a lot to teach. I mean, there's a lot to it. So.
There is. I don't think everybody knows. It's just kind of like anything. Nobody really knows what goes on behind the scenes until you kind of like get into it. So
it just looks great on the outside, and you just assume that's the way they go.
Right.
And
I'd probably like to interview you at some point, and like just to get your experience on how it's been as you've come into like with MLS committee and being vice chair of MLS committee, and kind of what that experience for you has been like, and how it's kind of, opened your eyes and things like that.
For sure. Oh yeah. We were just talking about it today in our office, and just somebody said, I was just joking about MLS, just about like, they just click a button and it works,
right.
And then telling them like, you have no idea what goes on behind the scenes for a change to be made and for it to even function the way it does today.
Right.
And they were like, I don't know how you do MLS committee. Are you going to do it again next year? I said, well, I'm the vice chair. So yes, that means next year.
I'm hoping you said yes.
I think I'm committed.
Yes.
Yeah. But no, it is neat to see how many conversations go on to make sure that this organization runs the way that it does.
And MLS is definitely a kind of a specialized thing. I think you have to enjoy that kind of aspect of it, right?
Absolutely.
To really, most people just want to, as long as it works, that's all they care about, right?
Yeah.
As long as
we don't need to
put in their listings and find houses, that's all they care about. They don't care about, how the sausage is made, right? So,
that's a good point.
MLS committee is very unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get into a little bit about who you are, because the interesting thing to me about your role is you're involved in all of it, right? All the committees and all of the conversations that go, and they say you're going to be in the room where it happened, like you are going to be in every room, because
pretty much,
you're basically there at all times.
Yeah. That's one of the challenges of an association our size, right? Is, we're a smaller staff, the bigger associations, with 5,000 plus members, they have much more staff that can kind of, so they can kind of, divide and conquer, in their world. And so for an association our size, it's pretty common for the AE to be in all the meetings, right? Just to know what's going on, not trying to micromanage, but just to have your pulse on everything that's going on.
Yeah. So to clarify your role and why we're even talking about the Association of REALTORS right now, is that you are the AE,
yes,
which is the association executive. And the way that I understand that is you're kind of a functioning CEO.
Right. Yeah.
And then that's over all the Lubbock Association of Realtors.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
The 1,700 and...
Yeah. 1,700. Yeah. About 1,700. We've kind of been hovering around that number for several years now. So, when I started with the association way back in 2001, not in a different role. I started out in the key service.
Okay.
We had 430 realtor members. And so
and that was in 2001.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, that's just kind of indicative of how Lubbock has grown over the past 24 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And you started off in key services.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. I like to think I still can make the best keys in the office. Don't tell the other staff that.
This might get out. I don't know. I don't know.
But yeah, I still make keys, from time to time if need be, and
that's awesome.
Can still check out a key box to somebody if they need one.
Yep.
So
if I wanted to be your role, the AE, I just need to go start making some keys at the office.
Exactly.
And then that's my trajectory.
That's the starting point.
Running this thing. All right. Great.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So tell us, what does that look like for you? What is the role of the AE for the Lubbock Association of Realtors? What does your day-to-day look like?
So I answer to the board of directors. That's really who employs me, is the board of directors of the association. And so I report directly to them, and then I work with our executive committee, which is composed of our leadership team, which is the president-elect, secretary treasurer, the chairman of the board, which our organization is a little bit different in that our chairman of the board is not the spokesperson of the association, right? But they're there to run the meetings of the board of directors. And then we have what's called a member at large on our executive committee, and that composes our leadership team. And so work closely with them, and then I'm directly involved with the other 11 committees and task forces that we have within the association. I'm typically in every one of those meetings, and so my day to day is typically committee meetings, putting out fires with staff, and then looking at where we're at with our strategic plan. Making sure that we're on track and trying to get the things accomplished that our strategic plan is laid out for us.
Yeah.
And that's really my job is to help with the strategic plan and making sure that, like I said, we're on track with that. And then we try to do a review of that at least once a year, and making sure that we're keeping up with what the industry looks like, and if there's any changes that we need to make to keep up with those changes. As there's been lots of changes in the last couple of years, and just trying to make sure that we're doing a good job and to serve our realtor members and in the community as well.
Yeah. So you navigated through a little bit of some twists and turns over the last couple of years.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
With the MLS system change, that's I would say for us, that was probably the biggest after all the changes with the settlement at the national level. But that was industry wide, right?
Right.
So
wasn't localized,
right? So for us, the MLS system change was the big. That was the biggest. I'd say day to day for the members, because it was 11 years since we had a new MLS system. So, that was a biggie. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically you're functioning to make sure everything's running smoothly. You've got a pulse on all the decisions that are being made that happen in committees, task forces that then move up to board of directors, and then you're basically reporting to them as well.
Right.
Everything that's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you for all that you do to make this organization what it is.
Oh, well, yeah.
You don't even have that much gray hair. I'm looking at you and I'm a little envious.
It's a lot more than it used to be, though, Ruben. Yeah, I can tell you that. Yeah. But it's, but we couldn't do it without really our volunteer leaders, our volunteer members. Because we're, volunteer run organization. And so without people like you that volunteer their time, you know, I know the pay is not great at the volunteer level.
We're going to talk about that after the show.
We should. Yeah. But, you know, so it's really up to you guys that, you know, that to come up with the ideas and the, you know, hey, to tell us this is what we need, this is what we're wanting, and it's up to us as staff to get out there and execute.
Yeah.
You know, so, but, you know, we couldn't do it without you guys being the driver within the association.
Okay. Well, that's neat because I see so many people who are volunteering. And I mean, not just, you know, I know that I've started here recently, but there are people that I've seen volunteer for years and years and years. And it's not usually the agents that don't have anything going on. You know, they're just bored. I mean, these are agents who are high producers and leading offices and teams. And then they're coming in here, giving their time and serving for you know, just volunteer, you know, which is neat because it shows the care that we have for the organization.
Absolutely.
And other members inside of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's neat.
Well, and, you know, that's what I love about the Realtor organization is there's so many people that are just willing to give back, you know, and I think there is a season for everybody. And it's one of the things I love is to get to see people like you, for example, that, you know, I think when people are starting out in real estate, you're really just, you know, trying to figure out, how do I make this thing go? Right. You know, how do I build my business? How do I feed my family? You know, how do I do that? And then you reach a point where you go, okay, you know, how can I give back? You know, and that's when I get to, you know, kind of get to know those people. And it can take some time for people to reach that point in their life where they're able to do that. And so that's what I enjoy is getting to see those people that, you know, have reached that point in their life where they get to contribute and getting to learn about them and watch them, you know, grow in their volunteerism is one of the really cool things about my job.
That's neat.
Yeah.
It is. It's so cool. As being on this side of the table, you know, and I think now it's been a couple of years now that I've been involved on the committee side of things and then the board. And it was really neat, almost like, the curtain opens up and it's just like this whole other world that exists. Like, man, I did not know that even the camaraderie that exists in these rooms and the functions that take place at the LAR level. And so it's really neat just experiencing that. It almost becomes a little bit addicting. It's like, I want to be back. I want to go back again.
Yeah, I love to hear that.
Be a part of that. So,
that's great to hear. And, you know, I don't think that is necessarily unique to real estate, you know, into any professional organization. But what I think is unique about ours is that, you know, you guys, you know, you got competitors from different offices, but you all have to work together.
That's right.
And some of the best friends I see in the business don't work in the same office.
No, they don't.
They work in different brokerages.
Yeah.
That's really cool to me.
It is.
You know, and I think that's very unique to real estate.
Yeah.
You know,
I won't give out names here. I could blast a couple people, but I walked into it's like a little pub the other day, and there were 3 or 4 people, I think, on a committee that I serve on that were all hanging out together. And one, I was like, hey, wait a minute here. I did not know about this. And this is not fair. But the really cool thing about it is as I looked around, you're right. It was like, don't office, same place, don't office. I mean, there were 4 or 5 of them, and then none of them were in the same office. Yeah. And just really neat that they're friends. Yeah. Right? And we'll do deals together. It just makes it that much easier because we've got that little bit of a connection of you know, hey, we're all win-win here, and
exactly,
we know a little bit of our backstories too.
And that's one of the things we talked about in today's new member orientation. We talk about every time is, you know, you got to get out there and it makes the deal go easier if you know the person that you're working with, and you know that's why it's important to go to, you know, while we do events and stuff, you know, just go and meet other agents even if they're not in your office. You know, get just so you know that person, put a face with a text or an email or whatever. It just helps build that camaraderie.
It does
in the business.
It does. All right, well, I'm gonna shift real quick because I want to make sure we hit on your family, because you're not just leading an organization, but you got a whole separate thing going on. So tell us a little bit. I know you've been married for a few years.
Yep. My wife Leslie and I, we've been married for 15 years, and she's from Lorenzo, so from the big city of Lorenzo. But she works over at the Health Sciences Center. She's in the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences.
Wow.
So it sounds very prestigious.
Okay.
But really what she is a student advocate. So she works with all the graduate students to make sure that they're on track to complete their stuff. And they're the smallest. She probably, hope I get this right, in case she hears this.
Good luck.
But they're the smallest college in the Health Sciences Center.
Okay.
So everybody thinks, and me too, you think about the Health Sciences Center, you think MD.
Yeah.
That's what, but there's other specialties over there, right? And so, she works with the students that primarily are probably going into research, the research field. Okay. And so that's what she does now.
Oh,
so
that's great.
She enjoys it, but she was a teacher when we first met and started dating. She was living in Frisco teaching at the time.
Right.
So we met. Cousin hooked us up. She was home for spring break.
Really?
Yeah, we went on a double date with my
awesome.
cousin and her husband.
Okay.
And we just kind of kept talking, and then 15 years later, moved her back here. So so we dated long distance for a year, then moved her back here, got married, and the rest is history.
Cool. And then now you have two littles. I say little. They're
I still say little, right? I mean, it's amazing how fast it goes. But so Nash is 13. He's a going in seventh grade at Evans.
Okay.
And then Reese is 8. He's in third grade, going into third grade at Miller.
Awesome,
so,
man. Fun age. You're teenage world now.
Yeah.
Can't even say preteen.
Right.
You're there.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It's gonna have its own things that come with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're navigating that, but they're good boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. They really are.
You're probably going to find a lot of things in common with the teenagers in the Lubbock Association of REALTORs.
Probably
I just
so.
wonder, yeah. Probably learn from each other how to lead each one.
Yeah.
You're kind of acting like my teenage boy right now.
There are some times where I see some similarities. Not gonna lie. You've seen those in those committee meetings too.
That's
you
right.
go,
That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Got to remind ourselves we're adults in here.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so let's hop into leadership.
Okay.
We've touched on a lot of it, I feel like, up to this point, but wanted to dial into what does it look like to you? You're unique in your role, both as a dad and as the AE of the LAR. Because in some of the things I didn't talk about, I'm going to sidetrack us a little bit. You don't just serve on the local level. You're also doing things on the state and national with Texas Realtors as well.
Yes, yeah. I'm right now. I'm on the Texas Realtors Strategic Planning Committee, which there's one appointee for the AEs on that committee, and so I'm lucky enough to get to serve in that role, which is really interesting to see it at the state level, because there's 150,000 Texas Realtors, and so. When you look at the strategic plan for an organization of that size, it is a lot different than what our strategic plan looks like. So it's really interesting to get to see it from that level. And then I've served on a lot of different things throughout my years at the state and national level, but I'm on the it's a information and technology committee at the National Association of Realtors right now. So. All very interesting. I think it's important just to be involved in those at the state and national, so you can kind of see what's going on at those levels and bring it back, to the local, so that you can kind of make sure that what we're looking at locally are things that are going to affect the state and the national as well. Yeah. Because we're closest to the customer is what I say, right? Yeah. So, even though members of LAR are also members of Texas Realtors and National Association, we're the closest ones. So it's important for us to have that knowledge about what's going on at state and national, so we can convey that here locally. Yeah. I
mean, I just think the alternative to that is staying in a bubble.
Exactly.
And then you don't really know what's going on, and how do you make the right decisions?
That's so true. And we're definitely in our own bubble just here in Lubbock, just because of our location, right? And it's important too for us to have people from here involved at state and national, so that we have a voice too, because when so much of the state is east of I-35, it's important to have that voice in West Texas at those levels.
Yes.
So
okay.
yeah.
Well, that's great. I love, and there's little things like this that I didn't know that much
Right.
about you, and being able to hear like, oh man, even cooler that we have somebody like you sitting in this seat.
Well, thank you.
Wanting to learn, wanting to be up at a different level so that you can come back and bring that back.
Yeah.
It was really helpful. We had Jeff Kahn, leading the chairman
Yes.
of the Texas Realtors, and
Yes.
even just knowing that, is super helpful.
I don't know if y'all touched on this when you talked to him, but he was the first chairman from Lubbock in 25 years.
Oh wow, you might have said that. Yeah.
I mean, the last one was John Walton back in 1999. And so that's and I guess it's kind of it's a proud dad moment.
Sure.
I'll be honest for Jeff, because Jeff went up through leadership here. He was president of the association, and so I got to know Jeff really well. But at the same time, like, Jeff did it himself, right? It's not like I waved a magic wand and put him in that role.
Yeah.
Like, you have to put in your time and your effort to make the necessary connections throughout the state to get to that level. But it's still like cool to think I had a little bit of a hand in that.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is so important, that to have people from Lubbock, and even people like Amarillo, San Angelo, places like that. We need to have those people moving up through the ranks at Texas Realtors. So it's not just always people from Houston, Austin, the big markets that are represented.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of these smaller towns represent. I say smaller. Lubbock feels really big until you go to an Austin, San Antonio, Houston. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But our issues are not. We're all the same, but we're all different, right? And so their issues are not our issues all the time.
Right.
So it's important for them to hear our perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, what does leadership look like for you, kind of on a daily level?
I think leadership to me is, what I've learned over the years from people like all the presidents that I've worked with. I try to take something away from them, because they've all got those skills, and have been honing those skills, as they're working up through leadership at the Lubbock Association. So I think for me, leadership is the big thing about leadership is listening more than you talk. Yeah. Right. Which is kind of funny to say as we were sitting here, just talking. Yeah. But I think that's a big piece for me is to listen more than I talk, because I need to listen to the members for what they're going through, what their needs are, so that we can make sure that we address that at the association level, So I think for me, that's probably the biggest piece of leadership is listening more than you talk.
Yeah. Well, that's just an interesting perspective as you're talking about the presidents. Like, every year, the Lubbock Association of Realtors has a new president.
Right.
And you've been serving in this capacity now for, I wrote it down somewhere, maybe I didn't. How long?
So 24 years. 20 years as the association executive.
Okay. So 20 years. So you've been through 20 presidents.
Yeah.
In your role, and then even more when you take it back to your key making days.
Right.
And so I'm just thinking, man, for one person whose position does not change, but yet your dynamic changes every year of the leadership team.
It does.
And who you're working closely with, and the board of directors. And all of these committees, they're all shifting. And you're having to navigate year by year, it just leaning a different way. It's not an entirely new organization or new leadership team.
Right.
But it's got a different take to it.
You're exactly right. Yeah. It is different, because it's like, December 31st, or I'm talking to one president, and then January 1st, it's like, okay, like, I'm not talking to you anymore. Not totally right.
Sure.
But you're not my first phone call, right? Yep. Now my first phone call is a different person.
Sure.
And So it does, you know, luckily, you know, there's a lot of opportunities to get to know that person as they're coming up through, you know, in the secretary treasurer, then president-elect, and then president. And then, you know, we go to leadership trainings. You know, they've probably been through TRLP, our Texas Realtors Leadership Program. And so you do get to know them, but then you really get to know them when you really, you know, when you start working January 1, that person starts being your first phone call is when you really start getting to know each other. Yeah. So it can be a little jarring sometimes to train, you know, from different personalities.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
So one thing that's fun is being on this side of the table. I get to hear and take part in like what other leaders are saying and doing, and I'm learning a lot. But just by sitting here in their presence. And so how neat that you're getting some like the cream of the crop that are going through the Lubbock Association of Realtors, just their, you know, like you mentioned, secretary treasurer, and then president-elect, and then president, and everything that took place to get to that point. Like these are some incredible leaders, they're influencing you.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, and I think that I take away as much from them, you know, as they do for me. You know, you referenced me being the constant, and I think it helps from a historical perspective, right? You know, to have, you know, the kind of the knowledge of where we were, you know. To bring that to the table. But then, you know, I just learned so much from each individual person, just from their own, you know, their different style, because everybody's kind of got their own style. But there's always, every year I take away something from somebody. Like, you know, this year, you know, Andrea started on her, you know, attention to detail, you know, is really kind of helped me to, you know, kind of just focus back on that, and, you know, kind of inspire me to, you know, be a better communicator too, you know, because she leads a team, she leads a brokerage, you know, and so it's those kind of things that you know really help me in my position too, is just the interaction with all the different personalities and learning what their strengths are, and maybe, you know, what can I take away from them to apply it, you know, in my day to day.
Yeah, and that's neat. And one thing too that I can't get out of my mind is you talked about listening more than you're speaking. And I'm just going to do real life scenario here. I've been in a few rooms with you now when meetings are going on, and you really do such a great job of taking things in. And then it reaches a point where it's like, hey guys, I need to just rein us in a little bit, or shed a little bit more light here on this conversation. Or do you realize if we go down the road we're going, where it could take us? So all that to say, I think the importance of having somebody who has those guiding principles, not necessarily just leading but guiding, is huge, because I feel like what you've done is created some guardrails where there's freedom, and even freedom to go outside the guardrails. It's not, but I feel like whenever you start getting closer to the edge, you know, like kind of a, hey, let's remember what we're doing, or you know, you just have a really good perspective and way to guide and steer.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
While giving freedoms.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think that's one of the challenges of my role. And, you know, I kind of learned those guardrails from guys like John Walton. You know, he was a stalwart on the board for years, and he was kind of always the guy that, you know, had those guardrails set up. You know, and that was always kind of was like to really consider the consequences of, you know, the unintended consequences of things. So I really learned a lot from him when it came to that. But then at the same time, I learned over the years you have to you can't get stuck in the mentality that that's the way that we've always done it, right? And so that is the challenge in our world, is you get comfortable in the way things have always been done, and you don't want to get so comfortable that you don't allow yourself to change and grow, you know. And that is a challenge for me, you know, is to not always be comfortable and be willing to be a little bit more flexible, And so I try to, I have to remind myself about that constantly. Yeah.
Okay, so there's that side of it, of being more flexible. And I feel like there could be a temptation. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but we are one of how many associations in Texas?
I think there's, the numbers shrunk over the last several years. I think there's about 56 associations in Texas.
Okay, so all doing things similarly but different.
Right. Yeah.
And kind of a guiding umbrella under all of it, but yet choices that can be made within each one. And I feel like there could be a temptation of like, look how they're doing it. And maybe we should change or adopt something that's going on somewhere else. And so I feel like there could be two challenges. One of being, let's be willing to make changes, but one that's also not, let's just change for the sake of change and because of what everybody else is doing.
Oh, you're spot on. I mean, really, I think, the biggest form of flattery is imitation. And so we always do want to look at what other associations are doing, to what can we steal? What are they doing that's working for them? What are they doing that's really innovative? But at the same time, you don't want to just do something just because another association is doing it too. Yeah. So there is that balance that you want to look at. But absolutely, I love stealing other ideas from other associations. Because Amarillo, like the Amarillo Association's a great friend to us. We do a lot of things together. We're in the same region when it comes to the Texas Association's format, and they're pretty similar in size to us. So we do a lot of things together, and so we think about a lot of things the same way, but there's some things that they're like way different than us. But you're spot on. That is the challenge. Is what do you look at that other associations are doing well? What works for you? What's going to work for us? But is it really worth the everybody else is doing it? Should we do it?
Yeah.
It's not always the case.
Yeah. Which is neat about a organization that's ran by its members. Right. Because that just helps tremendously, because you've got people coming into committees and on the board that aren't just making a decision for something that they're just like popping in and out of, right? They're in it on the day to day. And so even as changes are taking place, there's always this, but how does it affect me in my business, not just an organization? Right. And then how does it affect ultimately the consumer, right? That's the number one target for us protecting is the consumer. Right.
And I think there is that balance too that you have to consider, because our customer is you, the member, is the realtor. But then who do you serve? You serve the consumer, and so we do have to consider, okay, what is good for our members, but at the same time, how does that affect the people that you serve, the consumer, and trying to find that balance. Because you do want you do want to keep up with what the consumer wants, but at the same time, you got to remember, we're here for the realtor. It's an interesting dynamic.
Well, is there any kind of shifts that have taken place in how you view leadership? Like looking back at key making Cade versus today, what does that look like?
I think just it's much more. I think relax. I don't know if relaxed is the right term, but I relate it to even like the dress, like how you and I are dressed today, right? Is much more relaxed than it was 10 years ago. Okay, yes. Right. I wore a suit to work every day, suit and tie.
All right.
And
I got to pull out some pictures of this.
I know, right? Yeah, pull out the old history books there. Yeah, there is evidence of that. And so it's definitely more relaxed, and I think it's about me being more relatable. I think there used to be kind of a people in leadership might have this kind of, whether intended or not, just kind of a standoffish, maybe you had to be, I don't know what kind of word I'm looking for here, but I think, leaders today want to be more relatable than in the past. Okay. And not some figurehead. just more relatable.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I can, I'm trying to think back on like who I've been led with in the past or led by. And there definitely been those figures where they're kind of the untouchable. Like you don't really go visit their office. Right. And if you do, it better be the right thing that you're saying, and it better be, be quick and concise and
right.
And yeah, I would say I too can relate to that being here,
okay.
and just availability is a really big thing to me.
Right.
So just being approachable for people to pop in.
Approachable that's a great word.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I could tell that's you and that's your desire. And what do you feel like the difference in leadership and impact would be from somebody who's kind of leading from kind of maybe a little bit higher out of reach level versus somebody who's a little bit more side by side, approachable? What kind of, I would say maybe impact or influence differences do you see there?
I think you do have more. To me, I think it is more impactful if you can relate to that person that's in that head position. If they don't feel like they're not approachable, then people are not as willing to open up to you, to maybe bring ideas, be more outspoken in a committee meeting. And that's, we talked about this in board orientation, right? We want people to feel, new board members to feel as comfortable as possible from the get-go. And that's not easy to do, just because, there is, people do feel like there's a lot to learn, and you don't want to look, uneducated or something in a meeting.
Yep.
But, that's really important to me, that people feel like they have the freedom to speak up in a meeting, even if they're not sure of what they want to say or how they want to say it.
Yeah.
It's still important for me to have those people in the room to be able to feel like that they can voice an opinion. So I think that's really how the most impactful leaders is making others feel like, giving them empowerment, letting them feel like that they can open up.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, so many conversations from interviews that I've had before, like popping up in my mind, of leaders of, like Amy Thompson, CEO of Covenant, and I think Holly Duncan, it was very similar too, as they were just talking about like being in a room and being willing to listen and learn from other people. You don't have to have all the answers, and you don't want to have all the answers. Right. You want to be able to take it in from other people. Yeah. And absolutely. I think even going back to other conversations, Michael Hutton and, Michael was a big one for me, and Jackie Howard. And the reason is that was almost like at the beginning of almost my intro into being on the board. Really? And I can't remember which one of them said it, but they were just like, we want the new individuals to just speak. Right. And to, and it does feel like you have to get a lay of the land first when you're new in a room. Right. It's like, I don't know. Do you say something here? Like, how do people relate to each other in those types of meetings? And by the second, third, you're like, all right. I think I got the gist of it, and I can start making it known. But I think when you have that kind of influence and that modeled by your leader, where they're not standoffish or just demanding or controlling, but it's a little bit laid back, it's inviting, then it changes it, and you do get people that want to speak up, and then the ideas start to form and shape.
That's when you really when you really can create something and head in a really new, exciting path, is when you get all those voices, when people are not afraid to speak up, and they, and that kind of gets those creative juices flowing too. And it always makes me laugh. It used to be like, I'd have people tell me, man, when you'd call them from the association, I think, it's like getting called. Like, what did I do wrong? I'm getting called in the principal's office or something, And that's definitely not the kind of, what you want to convey, from a leadership position. But I think, it's more about like not knowing each other sometimes more than anything, I
do like to sometimes like send a text to somebody like, hey, is this your listing or something?
Yeah.
They're like, uh-oh. Like, what? Why are you asking that? You know, like, oh, I just want to say good job, man.
I think
Keep
you'll
it up.
right.
Keep it up.
Yeah, I think you'll find that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. As you've come into the MLS committee world, you know, and when you're chair, I think you'll probably get that too. Like, you know, people will be like, "Oh man, why is the MLS chair reaching out to me?" You
Right.
know?
Oh, yeah.
And really,
yeah.
you know, you're just, you know, you're just wanting to
just connect.
say, "Hey,
Yeah.
just connect," you know. But it is just kind of, it's interesting how even those titles like that can create a false sense of a false narrative sometimes, you know. And so you it's constantly trying to, you know, fight against those kind of false narratives.
Yeah. And I think this is a good thing for us to keep in mind when it comes to other leaders too. So take just us as followers of whatever it may be in the world that we're living in. That I think sometimes, like, I can find myself walking into a committee room and maybe not reaching out to you because of an intimidation thing subconsciously. It's not anything I'm thinking about, but I'm also not always going to walk up to the leader of a room and just be like, hey, I just want to sit and chat with you after this is over.
Yeah.
Until you've built a rapport, and then that takes time. But a part of me is also like, why not? You know, why are we not being a little bit more proactive and getting to know the people who are leading us?
They're people too, right?
Right.
You know, but yeah, I think, you know, I think everybody feels like that when, you know, when you have somebody that's got that title, you know, that automatically puts, you know, a stigma in your mind about, you know, saying the wrong thing, you know, when you go up, might make you pause before you go up and just have a conversation with them. And so, yeah, I think you're spot on. We've all got to kind of remember that everybody's just people, you know, and they're dealing with struggles, the same kind of struggles we probably are, you know, and nothing wrong with just going up and sparking a conversation.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and being proactive on your end, I love that you're intentional about even just making sure that you are approachable, because it does changes energy. It changes even the momentum of a conversation.
Right.
Just when it's like, yeah, I'm excited to sit here and talk with you.
Right.
You know, and it just changes the dynamic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, has there been a moment along the way that has impacted you, like a life event, a work event that kind of maybe shifted the views that you've had on leadership? Or
I think having kids, you know, and I think everybody that has kids, that is a pivotal moment in your life and how your perspective on everything changes. Yeah. And how it does really make you think about the future. I think everybody thinks about the future, but when you have kids, it makes you think about the future in a different perspective. You know, and it you know, so having kids made me think about the things that we do, like an organization, you know, and how it matters. Tree Pack, for example, you know, and that's kind of my why. On the, you know, if we're talking about start with why, you know, like why I invest in Tree Pack and do it, you know, the political side of what we do in the Realtor organization is because I think about the future for my kids and what that looks like and why it's important, you know, with the advocacy things that we do as the Realtor organization is not just, you know, for us right now, but it's for the future. So I think just having kids is probably the biggest life event for me to make me evaluate and think about things differently.
Was there a moment when you had your first kid where it was just like, uh-oh,
right?
Like, what needs to shift, or what, maybe like a reality moment with the first one?
Right. Isn't it that moment like when you bring that firstborn home, right, for the first night, right, and you realize like, oh man, this is our responsibility. This is on us, you know. And that first night, you know, with your firstborn at home, man, I don't know if anybody really sleeps well, you know, that first night.
For sure.
But then you realize that, you know, it's all going to be okay, right? You know, there's no, you can try to have a playbook for everything, but we're all just learning as we go when it comes to kids.
And then you got the grace, it's got to come in. Like, I'm going to mess up. So let's just know that.
Right.
And start moving forward.
I don't know about you, but that too for me was when you have kids, man, it just really makes you open up your grace.
Yeah, I think your idea of perfection changes.
Absolutely.
It is so untangible.
Oh, man.
When it comes to kids. Like,
absolutely.
It's so out of reach.
It's so out of reach.
Yeah. And I think being a husband, having a spouse, you'll let some of those things just go. Like, we're going to progress over perfection here. Like, we're just going to move in the right direction.
Man, what a great phrase. Yeah. Progress over perfection. Yeah. Right. Man. And, you just feel like, you just want to do the best you can. I think that's all you can do, right? Do the best you can and hope for the best, because they're still going to be an individual, regardless of, you do everything you can to try to shape and mold, right? Yeah. But they're still an individual.
Absolutely.
And so, and, learning this with a teenager, right? It's like, you gotta remind them every day. Deodorant. Deodorant is so important, Ruben.
Which comes after a shower, right?
Which comes after a shower. And regardless of what you're doing for the day, hey man, let's put on that deodorant.
It's not just for sports days. It's not just the football.
It's not just for sports days. Okay. Yeah. And that right there, if we, that's kind of right now in our stage of life, man, if we've got our deodorant on for the day, it's a win, baby.
We're winning.
We're winning.
Oh my goodness. Flashbacks, man. When I was a kid, I'm like, oh yeah, that's important. Now I'm starting to learn why.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, that's good. I feel like there's so many lessons you can take from parenting.
Absolutely.
To life. And much of it is sometimes it's just go back to the basics.
Go back to the basics.
Put your deodorant on. That's like, let's get out the door and make sure we're off to head to the right start.
Right.
Right direction.
Right.
We all probably have like our quote unquote deodorants of the day.
Right.
Of like, if I just did this one thing over and over again.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
Right.
It's going to make such a big impact over
right.
time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
People will actually want to hang out with me.
Right.
If I wear my deodorant.
It makes a big difference. It makes a big difference in your approachability.
Yes, it does, man. We're just linking all this together.
It's all linked back to putting on deodorant.
That's it. We're going to write a book. Just put on the deodorant.
A perfect book title right there.
Yeah. Well, speaking of books, let's dive into this one. I'm actually surprised this has not been recommended yet because it's such an impactful book. But tell me, this is Start With Why. Yeah. Simon Sinek. Mm-hmm. Tell me why it came to mind for you when I asked you for a book recommendation and what it's done for you.
Yeah, so it came to me from Tony Lloyd. So Tony Lloyd, back in 2020, he was the chairman of the Texas Real Estate Political Action Committee. And so so I won't get too far into the weeds on this, but all the trustees, he gave a copy to all the trustees at the time. And so it was really Tony Lloyd that turned me on to this book. And I just think it's just such a simple concept, but so important to look at why you're doing anything within your organization and why you're doing anything maybe as an individual. When you start with your why, that's your North Star to whatever you're trying to accomplish. Yeah. And so it was Tony Lloyd that turned me onto that book. And it's so simple, but it's just a great, anybody can take that and apply it to whatever you're doing in your daily life.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you had to say how this is speaking into you right now, like in this season, what can you take from that even in the role that you're currently in? So
I think, like right now is, kind of how we applied it to our MLS when we were looking at MLS vendors, like why are we making a change? And what were the things that we looked at? What were our priorities? Our mobile capability. Our current MLS vendor, it was not meeting our members' needs. When it came to the mobile platform, people were struggling with that in their day to day. So that was our why. Is number one. Let's at how we can help our members in the mobile technology, and then 2, what's a player in the field that has a good representation in across the nation, but also in Texas. And then 3 is how is it going to impact our members? But if it's a momentary discomfort for long-term benefit, then it's worth it, And so that's kind of how, I was able to apply that when we were looking at our MLS vendors, and I think it definitely helped in that realm when we were looking at that change.
Yeah, that's really neat, because sometimes I think that like books like this can take on, like, you've got to have maybe the why behind, like, almost the purpose, the call for your life in order to move forward over here. Or it could just be like this such big why. And that's okay. I mean, I think we all probably should navigate and understand what that is. But what I love about what you just did is you took that principle of the book and you applied it to a situation. And not just like waking you up in the morning to get to work.
Right.
But it's like, now that we're here, this is our problem. Let's start with our why.
Right.
Like beginning anything with our why.
And I think bigger picture, like for me right now, is I feel like organized real estate is it's kind of been under fire for the last couple of years, but if you look at the why for organized real estate, it's really for the benefit of the consumer, because really who benefits from an organized real estate world? It's the consumer. We've got it is really the envy of the world when it comes to like our MLS system, the multiple listing service. It's so important for the consumer, and nowhere else, do you have a place where consumers can go and see all the available inventory, and anybody through their agent can make an offer on a piece of property. Europe doesn't have anything like that. And so you imagine, trying to work in that world and trying to find a home would be infinitely more difficult. And so, it's really, for me right now, is the why is, or you got all these competing brokerages that all still need each other to make deals happen, and so when all the competitors come together in our world, it really does make for a better environment for the consumer. It really does. And, that's, I hope that, one day we, that kind of, we'll kind of circle back to that, and, people realize that, organized real estate's not a bad thing,
Yeah. You're probably hearing it from so many different places right now, just of, even the publicity and the, just this connotation that the Association of Realtors, it's not Lubbock, it's not even state necessarily, but the national level,
right?
And so I know you're having to really draw a lot of education to why in the first place, and why is this can continue to be a good thing for the consumer,
right?
And so what are you learning right now? Like what's the thing that's like, man, through all of the twists and turns and continued challenges, like what's Cade learning today?
I'm trying to navigate, what our future looks like as far as like the MLS ecosystem, and what I think we are looking at. What does the next 5 years look like as far as like in our region, MLS system wide, right? Are we better served in our current structure? Is it time to look at a broader, more regional kind of situation for the MLS? Maybe. I don't know. And trying to navigate that right now, I think is the biggest challenge, not just for me personally and trying to wrap my mind around that, but I think for just the realtors in the Lubbock area too, is, thinking about what that future looks like.
Yeah. And
what do we need to do now to benefit all realtors here in the next 10 years, in the next 15, the next 20 years?
Yeah.
And that's, I'll be honest, Ruben, it's a challenge. I'm really having a hard time figuring out, what the best path is. But I'm not alone in that. And I think we're all going to figure that out together, because it's really going to come from people like you and people, the other members that are in those committee meetings. But I think that is going to be our biggest challenge as a realtor organization in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. So you're having to you're looking in a non-existent crystal ball,
right?
And saying, what should it look like in 20 or 30 years? And
right.
Scale that back to what does it need to look like for the next 5 years, where we need to go even there. And so, never has it been more true about needing to learn to evolve, like having that capability of change. And,
absolutely.
Than right now, because I think, I've only been in real estate for, 8 or 9 years. Mm-hmm. And so I've seen change, but not like some of the veterans in our field, like those have been 40, 50 years.
Right.
Man, what they've gone through over the course of it. But when you take the last two to three, man, so much change.
Big change.
Compact into just a little bit of time. And even knowing we're not done yet. Right. It's still going to continue to change and evolve and shift. And I think that's probably any industry right now. I think real estate's a little bit more unique in the realtor side of things, but with technology moving at the rate that it's moving, most organizations are navigating the same changes, right? Or their own changes.
AI is affecting every industry.
And so I think now more than ever do leaders of organizations and businesses have to realize the way that things have used to be, that is even a year ago, is going to have to change. Like we're going to have to just be on the forefront always of making sure we know what's going on.
Do you feel like too that there's maybe an increased a return to the value of a phone conversation over the last 2 years than there used to be? Because I don't know, I may be alone in this, but I do kind of have that feeling that there is maybe a bit of a return to seeing the value in having conversations, not just over text, right? It's more getting back to that personal, because I think even with the big changes that we're seeing in real estate, and maybe this has to do with how the settlement has affected things, but there is a bit more communication now, right? And a bit more, you have to pick up the phone. Yeah. Do you feel that too?
I do. I think that, when I look back to about 3 or 4 years ago, this is maybe even pre-COVID, so we maybe even say 5 or 6 years ago, there seemed to be this big push to technology. And it was like everything is moving to technology backed, communication. And then it just seemed like that tried to work itself out, and maybe it was COVID, or maybe just, I don't know. It did seem like it returned back to voice to voice, face to face, and just the value of that. I think people are not having, I think for a little while, there was this thought that maybe people are going to pick up the phone and just make an offer on a house, and technology is going to help take care of that. And, we don't even really need a showing agent anymore.
Right.
And it just seems like, it's like, no, I need that person I can trust.
Yep.
I need that person that I know is going to have my back.
Right.
And that comes primarily when I think of it, it's engaging face to face or voice to voice.
Yeah.
And so, that was a long way to answer that question, but I think so.
And I don't think this will ever change in the real estate business, regardless of how much technology you have initially in the home search, home list process. I think you're always going to need that human person to take you to the finish line, right? When it comes down to the nitty gritty and actually getting the deal done, I think at some point in the transaction, you're still going to need that human person. I don't think that'll ever change.
Yeah.
And that's why I think realtors are so important.
Yeah.
It is getting the consumer to the finish line. And that's almost I guess a slogan that we ought to consider in an ad campaign is let the realtor get you to the finish line.
Yeah.
because for years it was, the internet changed how the home search process was. Consumers were still, were able to find properties on their own. They didn't have to have an agent necessarily to find properties. Mm-hmm. But what hasn't changed is you guys still are there to get them to the finish line. When it comes down to wanting to make an offer, are we making the right offer?
Yep.
Are we, when it comes to listing a property, are we listing it for the right amount? You still got to have it. You still need a human to help you through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, there's so many things that I know you're involved with, primarily like on the realtor side. And one of our biggest things is ethics, right?
Yeah.
Abiding to a code of ethics that makes the Association of Realtors really unique among real estate agents. Mm-hmm. And it scares me that technology, sure, it's got guardrails and it's got limits of what it can and can't do, but I think there's a lot of things that could glitch out, and all of a sudden ethics don't really exist.
Right. That's a great point. Like, who writes the ethics for AI, right? Mm-hmm. And so, who says that it's like that the AI model that was that they were using in a law case, right? And so the AI was bringing up cases, quoting cases and things that never actually happened, like didn't exist.
Okay.
Right. Wow. And that's the kind of things that scare me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so who has those guardrails up, for the technology, all this technology that's just rapidly, coming into the industry. And so that's, I
think there's a lot of principles that we look to for character traits that like, I'm going to work with you because X, Y, Z, but I think one of the number one things is trust, right? Of why you would work with somebody, why you would even go a certain direction. And I think when you're making big decisions like this, but I think even going to the grocery store sometimes, I mean, it's like, man, what grocery store do I just trust?
Absolutely.
Because of reputation and the way they've taken care of me before, and they're local, and
when you get your oil
it's like where I get my, that's exactly right. So I don't think it's just unique to our industry. I think it also has a lot to do with just the way that we're wired. Mm-hmm. And honestly, we were just having a meeting hours before you walked in and talking about clients choose people to work with who they know and trust.
Yes.
And that trust piece is just so vitally important.
Absolutely.
So I think if I could put kind of like a bow on all that we've talked about today, I think even the way that your approachability, the way that you can lead for 20 years, comes from the ability for people to be able to trust you, and I think you've made that.
Well, and talking about the trust piece, I would hope that the association would be a trust piece for our members, right? Mm-hmm. We want to try to make the member feel like that they can trust us in whatever it is that they're coming to us for, to fix a problem, or that we're going to, choose the right MLS system. Whatever that is, you have to have that trust with the members from an association level. So you're right. I mean, trust is, it's everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, much as I want to keep going, we're going to have
I could talk to you for hours, Ruben. Yeah. Going. Yeah. This has been great.
I'm going to conclude with the one question of, if you could simplify leadership, which is a tough thing to do, but if you could simplify and put it into one sentence, what is leadership to you?
Leadership to me is the ability to guide an organization or people towards a common goal or common purpose. That would probably be how I would define leadership.
Okay, that's awesome. I think like in the thing about that is you've got to know the goal, you got to know the purpose,
right?
You got to start with why.
With why.
It's like so many things. Yeah, but leading and guiding, and again, guiding I think is I'm going to just start calling you the guide, the wise guide, just because I think you do that really well.
Oh,
and I love that, you're
you,
not just like micromanaging, and you're not giving your opinion at every turn, but you're just Like, I'm just here as the sage, just to say, I don't know about that. Let's reconsider, you know, but not saying no either.
Yeah.
So, no, it's really good.
Yeah.
Well, Cade, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
I enjoyed it. Even getting to know you better. Like,
Yeah,
this is
same.
These are always good opportunities.
Same.
Especially the people who have your back, you're working on our behalf. And so getting to know who my leader is, is incredible. So this is great.
Well, I've enjoyed this. This has been fun.
Well, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you think so. And I'm glad you were here for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be seeing you around, and hopefully even anybody as they're buying their next house will realize, like, man, even that guy that was on that podcast one time has an impact on my purchase today.
I love that.
Yeah. You get your fingerprints all over it.
Dude, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. For somebody to recognize that. Yeah. Well, this is cool. You're doing a good thing, Ruben. So keep it up, man.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for coming on, man.
You bet.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks.